Hi, welcome. Reanimated Podcast 180 is the number of this episode. My name's Stuart. Joining me is H.A. Conrad. Hello.
Hello.
It's been a while, friends, but we're happy to be back and talking about Fear the Walking Dead today. In fact, we're going to be so happy to be talking about Fear the Walking Dead. We're going to talk about 4 episodes, the second 4 of the since the mid-season premiere. So, gosh. But what's new in your world, H.A. Conrad?
No, the usual stuff. I don't know. Have you seen the trailer for the Nick Cage movie Mandy? Not zombies, but kind of strange and bloodbath and gore. Have you seen this?
No.
It's a classic revenge tale, which apparently involves some psychedelic drugs. There is a specific trailer I think you should check out. Maybe we should add them to the show notes, of him kind of going crazy in a bathroom wearing a tiger shirt, which seems to be what everybody is talking about. It's hard to tell whether this is supposed to be, so over the top that it's funny, or whether he's taking it very seriously. It's Nick Cage, so you don't know. But anyway, I think you should at the very least check out a trailer of it.
Will do.
But in actual zombie news, we got a few things going on, some catch up. It's a beautiful fall day here for the interim, and that's about it. Nothing too crazy going on here. How about you?
Why don't you kick it off with the first news?
So this is old-ish, but upcoming, and we've talked about this a few times. But E9 the Apocalypse is going to be released for your holiday enjoyment. And they just released a new trailer. It reminds me a little bit of Nightmare Before Christmas crossed with Shaun of the Dead, crossed with High School Musical, something like that. Do you
remember when we watched these trailers for E9 the Apocalypse a year ago?
Mm-hmm.
Almost. I mean, it was like probably in November of last year.
Yeah, it was when they started to, because they released this in like little film festivals and things like that.
But do you remember if this is identical? It seems to me that it's almost exactly the same trailer.
It is extended, and they show a few more musical numbers, I guess, but it's pretty close to the same thing.
Yeah. Such a bizarre tale of beginning for this film. But
I do think that they have that, the voiceover, and they trying to make it a little bit more slick. So basically they're packaging it for the holiday season. I get it.
It's still something that will be on our list to see for sure. But holiday release, I think.
Yep. And then next up, there was the trailer for Redcon 1. And the thing that struck me about this trailer is it was basically like a never-ending list from the makers of, from the director of. It was like, did you notice that? It was kind of funny.
And anytime you see people doing like martial arts on zombies, you have to have a pretty big grain of salt going into that production.
Right. So it's your classic. The world is being taken over. London once again. Obviously ground zero for any zombie apocalypse. Maybe we'll see a little crossover between that and E9 the Apocalypse. Who knows?
That would be lovely if we would see all these grizzled operators start doing song and dance.
I was kind of hoping for it, but it didn't happen. But there just does look to be quite a bit of martial arts and choreography going on there. And then there is a book out, apparently, that is called Severance, and based upon a fungal zombie viral thing, but a very, I don't even think, thinly veiled judgment upon humanity about consumerism and capitalism. This is taking place in China, from what I understand. We've been seeing more and more of these kinds of things come out. Did you ever read the Civil War zombie apocalypse book? Because I read that. It was not the worst thing I've ever read.
No, I haven't hit that.
It was all right, and definitely the author did a fair amount of research about the Civil War. There were some really interesting things that she decided to throw in there. So It's definitely YA, but some of it is pretty interesting. So,
Well, okay, but in Severance, in this book, the zombies are called fevered, and they're not traditional zombies. They don't eat people. They just kind of do the same repetitive activity, like setting tables or watering houseplants until they die of
right,
starvation,
right.
which is pretty.
And it's fungal,
It's
right?
well, yeah, it's a so it'll be like a girl with all the gifts, I guess, but maybe without the punchline at the end where they turn into those
Things.
giant things. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting motif, and then yeah, not. I guess it's apparently pretty heavily buttered with the anti-capitalism butter.
Is that butter? More like
I mean,
oil? I don't
who
know.
knows? Who knows?
And then this is also somewhat old news. Apologies, folks. My work schedule just got into the way of all of this fun stuff. But we're better now. But somebody else's work schedule apparently is getting in the way of her doing some movies. And look, she's been on it from the beginning, but alas,
Not quite the beginning.
pretty close though.
Yeah.
Lauren Cohan is leaving the Walking Dead. I don't know that this is a huge surprise to me, only because I think when you see stalwarts like Andrew Lincoln and others leaving the show, this is just somewhat inevitable. I mean, the show's been going on for years, and look, at some point, it is all consuming, ha ha ha. But, people want to do some other projects. She's been talking about that for a while, and then there was a little bit of, remember, there was some intrigue just about whether she was coming back or not, and some things to do with her contract negotiation. So this doesn't totally shock me, but it does make me sad because I really like her a lot. So, bummer.
Yeah, I have to think that this is somewhat a sign of the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like who's next? Like we've talked about before, Melissa McBride and Norman Reedus. Who knows how long they're going to stick around? And once they go, what does that mean? And also, like just earlier, 6 months ago, there was a quiet campaign for her to get paid more, and I have to wonder if that isn't just the reason that she's just not saying in public, is that they never met her
Maybe
demands for her fee, and she's like, all right, screw you guys, I got Mile 22, I've got lots of other films that I could be doing, and now it's funny that she says, I never thought I would do drama, I thought I would do light fare. And have you seen some of the stuff she did before
Yeah.
Walking Dead?
It's really, yeah. So
Like she's basically like a Bond villain, hot girl. I don't know how to pronounce how to describe it, but she's wearing it's like cleavage showing, big hair.
it is not Maggie.
It's not. Yeah, it's very different. I don't know if that's what she means by light fare or if she means comedy, but it was very interesting.
Yeah, so we'll see how that plays out. But I guess my question, and this we talked about this before, it's like, well, where if the show isn't going to go away, what do they do with it? Because I don't know that Norman Reedus, or at least his character at this point, I think the actor is great, but I don't know that he's an anchor in the way that they have built him up to be. I think he could get there, but they got to do a little bit more. And then, maybe they somehow cross over and combine into the Fear the Walking Dead. I don't know. We'll see. It seems like they're implying a little bit of that, at least from what we're seeing. But before we get into Fear the Walking Dead, let's talk about Train to Busan, the sequel.
I'm excited that they're going to be coming out with another film. I have still yet to see the Seoul Station prequel, the animated version, even though I've had it sitting, waiting for me to watch it for a long time. But I do want to go back to this world, and I want to see more insane stunts by like circus zombies or whatever the hell these people are. Like, so
the Cirque du Soleil team or whatever the heck they do. I know it's pretty good.
Yeah,
I'm excited about it.
It's going to be set on the peninsula. I mean, the working title at least is Bondo, which means peninsula, which has the authors of this article that we read thinking that the virus is spread across the entire Korean peninsula, and then this is that's what we got to work with. It's pretty open, pretty general, but then it's also a working title. So we'll see what it looks like in next year or whenever. 2019 is when shooting is going to begin, so it's still a ways off.
Yeah, but I mean, if you remember, there was a lot of debate. There was, some reluctance to do a sequel, but I guess that they won everybody over. So I'm excited to see what they do with it, because I have a feeling they're going to come up with some good stuff. So stay tuned for that one. And now, without further ado, on to our review of Fear the Walking Dead Season 4. And as Stuart implied, just because we've been so out of it recently, we're going to be talking about episodes 1 through 4. And I have to say, I think there's some ground to cover here, but a couple of these episodes has a lot of, I don't want to say dead air, but kind of feels that way a little bit. Like,
yeah, I'm there with you.
Okay, so I'm not the only one that feels this way. All right, fair.
Let's start.
What I was going to say, I almost suggested that we talk about all 5, but I thought that was a little bit overkill. So let's hop in. So basically, this is the jump in after the mid-season finale, and Madison had left us, and some time has passed, though not too much, and you're kind of trying to, or at least I was trying to figure out a bit of it.
I mean, we could gauge that based on John's injury.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So that's kind of there. Somehow they've all ended up in this, like, especially like Strand and Lucy and Alicia have ended up in this like estate somehow. And they're just like hanging around, listening to records, drinking. June, John, and Charlie are in slightly less luxurious circumstances. They're just on a bus on a bridge. And a lot of
Morgan has the least luxurious of any. He's in the back of a flatbed truck that has like a fabric roof. Like he doesn't even have a metal or roof. And I guess Al of course still lives in her van.
Yeah, but that's an eye. But I guess the thing that I think is a little. I mean, I guess we're supposed to take away that they're not together anymore on a physical way. In some ways, that I can get that's difficult because Charlie's position is really a tough one. There's no love lost between her and Alicia and Lucy and Strand, and but still the fact that they're all kind of living like this is a little weird to me. But okay, and basically this is Morgan's kind of doing the go between with all these camps because he has decided to go back to Virginia to Rick's team. There's a lot of like. When I was talking about dead air, dead weight, whatever you want to talk about, this is a little bit of what I mean. There's a lot of Morgan kind of going between the groups in this scenario, asking them to go with him, getting rebuffed. And then, I mean, I guess he's having a little bit of regret, anxiety that he should stay and help because clearly they're all suffering. But I don't know. Part of me is sort of like, okay, now he suddenly decided to go back to Virginia. And is it because he just sees more of the same out there? I don't know. It just felt like there was just a lot of sort of, just repeated themes in this particular episode and not getting anywhere. Maybe that's what we're supposed to feel, that it's a little bit frustrating and they're all in a rut.
They're definitely all in a rut. I think this is the, if the first half of the season was about failure, the second half of the season is definitely like trauma and post-traumatic stress. Certainly in the case of Lucy and Strand and Alicia and Alicia. and theirs isn't necessarily only like, oh, we've been through so much. It's also that they've lost so many of their close friends, in this case, Nick, and Madison. And honestly, that's kind of where this show is left. It's like we've lost two of the most charismatic people on this show, and now what? And then so I'm right there with Alicia and Lucy and Strand, even though they're all three of them are going through this in slightly different ways, and I think it's kind of a little too obvious the way it's been written that they're like, none of us are quite like each other, but we're all feeling the same feelings. Like, so Strand is never stops drinking, and he's always completely hammered. Lucy is just listening to music really loud in the zombie apocalypse, which we all know. So he's doing something dumb in the zombie apocalypse. She's doing something dumb in the zombie. And then Alicia is like on a mission to save somebody, which is like the only saving grace to that trio, because at least she's doing something productive, even if she is also like, I don't need anybody's help. I don't want to work with anybody, but I want to help people. Okay. Those are all not working together. But yeah, so Morgan's desire to go back to Alexandria, I think, is more about his own stuff than the people there. Like I feel like because he says, I want to be able to tell Rick that he was right. So, I mean, I feel like that's just, they're saying it out straight up. And I think that's why he wants to go back.
But there's also, I mean, just in terms of the writing and the storytelling here, so Alicia really wants to help people. She's been seeing these walkers pop up with notes that have been bolted to them, and then only when Morgan, I mean, she's been finding them for a while, and only when Morgan comes along does she realize, oh wait, they might be from this lumber mill because the logo is right on them. You know, like, there's some things that are a little bit too ridiculous here, and this has always been my issue with some of the writing on this show. And I get that I get what they're trying to do here, but some of it I felt could have been done a little bit more elegantly. I don't, you know, in terms of like random walkers popping up at the house, the big giant like estate, like they don't even lock the doors. I just stupid stuff that I don't buy that they would do even in their state. I do have to say kudos to Strand for finding an excellent wine cellar, because that is pretty funny. But it is a little too over the top and too much like, oh, of course he's just getting drunk all the time and Lucy's just listening to records and that kind of thing. It's a bit too much. But anyway, Morgan basically tries to help Alicia find the guy she's trying to save, and it is all for naught. He is zombified.
It's not all for naught, because there's one really good zombie kill scene.
Well, I was about to bring that up, but, you know, it gives them the opportunity to take out a big group of walkers with a bunch of logs and a winch. So that was pretty good. And also the little bit that we see of John's still adorable. He makes up his own little Scrabble set. We do see a little bit of what's going on with Charlie. She's not talking to anybody. She almost gets killed by a walker. Like she's just not, you know, she's clearly not doing so well.
Yeah, she's not really operating. And Al is also, we don't really get much of her in this episode other than she saves Charlie's life, and we see her welding. And she's like, I retooled up my guns, so I'm ready to drive you back to Alexandria, Morgan, which she very readily agrees to do. And Al continues, certainly as these 4 episodes go on, Al is still this just unrealistic version of a character to me. Maybe they'll get to the point where she's going to start talking about herself more and her motivations, because right now it seems extremely difficult to relate to. She's a stranger.
Yeah, and even when they try to do it a little bit, it still doesn't make any freaking sense at all. So I like the motivation. Okay, I mean, we've talked about this before, but fueling a vehicle like hers is like the amount of fuel you would need continuously. It seems crazy. Plus, keeping all that artillery like fully like stocked, kind of crazy too. So that's.
I've already complained enough about those using a saw in the zombie apocalypse, let alone using 2 of them bolted to the side of a truck. It's absurd.
And the only reason why I bring this up is like for as we get down the road, so to speak, with this freaking van. We'll talk about this a little bit, but in any case, I totally agree. Like, I just don't, her whole thing about the stories and about, you know, just the way she is, I just feel like she is a very flat character, and I just don't really get it.
Just to mention, at the end of the first episode, people are all separated. Morgan's with Alicia. John is with Charlie. Jenna Elfman, what's her name? June is with whom? Al, I guess. And then a storm blows into town, and it gets progressively worse. But there is kind of an interesting like epiphany that June has when she sees all these birds flying and lots of bodies washing down the river, and she comes to this conclusion that there's a big storm coming before. Like, I don't know if we all know because we had seen the trailers and the previews for the episode, but I think that was if they hadn't shown everybody that there was going to be a big storm episode, it would have been a pretty cool realization to have, and so I was kind of grateful for that scene.
Yeah, I like that. One other thing we should mention before moving on is that the other thing that annoyed me in this episode is so part of their sort of getting separated, Charlie runs off because apparently really doesn't want to play Scrabble with John. And even after he handmade that whole Scrabble board, Stuart.
Well, you know it was because she wants to make amends.
I know, but yet, okay, what I do have to say is that somehow this kid manages to cover more ground than, like, she ends up at the house with Strand and Lucy. Lucy chases her out because she leaves, like, the little prince thing, which is what Nick gave her. Who knows where Lucy ends up? Then, suddenly, miraculously, she ends up in the same house where Alicia has taken refuge after telling Morgan she's fine on her own. And there they have many adventures in the next one. But it's, like, just ridiculous. So, just saying that this kid manages to cover more ground than any of these people apparently combined. And then, of course, John and Strand are out looking for her.
Well, she's good at finding things.
Yeah. But nobody's good at finding her.
No. Well, she's like the new Carl.
Yep. Oh,
never
God,
in the
she's
house.
Never in the house.
So the first one we talked about was episode 9 of the season. It's called People Like Us, and it was directed by Magnus Martins and written by Anna Fishko, and it had an audience of 1.88 million. And the second one, or 10 rather, is Close Your Eyes, which is what we're about to talk about, and that's Michael Satrazemis, longtime director, and Shintaro Shimasawa was the writer. And that one has 1.86. So this is probably my favorite of the quartet we're talking about. And I think this is no surprise because it's a tight little story about just two characters. And I feel like this is the only way that this show and The Walking Dead really managed to excel lately.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's okay. I just found their interactions to be extraordinarily annoying. But basically, it's what we were saying, that Charlie manages to find the house that Alicia takes refuge in. One thing I will say is that the walkers flying around and being just kind of this new threat / other because of the storm, because they just are kind of being taken. That was kind of fun. I liked that.
Z Nation did do a Sharknado with zombies in its first season too. But yeah, this is, I mean, the thing is, it's not like zombies are flying with their teeth out and they're chomping at people in the air, but they're
just kind of these random
coming out of nowhere. Yeah.
But anyway, and so I kind of like the reveal of that stuff. So like Alicia's takes, she's in this house, manages to take care of the Walker family that's there. She's pretty, I mean, clearly the PTSD stuff going on is there because she takes down all their photos. And I do think that this was an interesting way to do it. There's like this photo of them when they were, alive, all like on the ground laughing and stuff. And they do a nice little juxtaposition between them dead in the backyard and that photo, which I thought was pretty good. And, ultimately discovers that Charlie is hiding out in this house. And, the things that kind of drive me nuts about this is that, I like the fact that obviously Alicia is struggling, but there's a lot of very, to me, just overly dramatic speeches on Alicia's part where she's like, I don't want to kill you, get out. And then she's like, you need to suffer. And it's like some of the monologues are just ridiculous to me.
I kind of not enjoyed it, but I mean, I thought that it felt legit. I'm constantly impressed with Alicia Debnam Carey and her ability to emote on camera. I think that her other role that I've seen her in the most was on The 100, where she plays like a tough cult leader or something. Mm-hmm. And so having her be able to do all this, it's powerful, man. I feel it. Like, and it's not like she's acting this way. Her acting, rather, is not like coming from a place of anger. It's more like just you feel how vulnerable she is, and I feel like it's palpable. And I thought that was really impressive as a performance.
Maybe it's not an objection about her acting, because I think her acting is great, and I agree with you. It's just, I just don't buy that this kid is gonna stay there when she's all crazy and psycho and being like, you should suffer. And I get, I get it to some extent that it's Charlie feeling guilty, and then there's the whole thing where Charlie's gonna commit suicide, and then Alicia figures this out. It just feels a little bit too, I don't know. I don't want to say convenient, but it just feels a little bit too forced to me.
Well, it's
but
definitely convenient, but it's necessary. I mean, otherwise, we're never going to get past this,
True,
right? Unless
true.
they kill Charlie off.
Yeah. The parts that I did enjoy about this, as I said, was the stuff with the walkers. Like, they discover, or Alicia discovers this walker that's basically gotten impaled because he got flown, like, into this tree outside the house, Wizard of Oz style. And there's that stuff. There's a lot of stuff to do with the weather because the shutters are falling off and there's flooding in the basement. The house itself is this kind of weird environment falling down all around them. And it was clearly a happy home for this family until, obviously things went south. So there's the interesting element of the house being almost a third character in this.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. And I did like how, they're kind of, it starts out where Charlie's locked up in the bedroom, Alicia's down by the fire, and then Alicia just has to bring herself to deal with Charlie, and slowly they're forced into more and more confined spaces with each other. In the end, in the basement with the water coming up, like it's like, you're not going to get away from this person. And honestly, the last thing where Charlie's basically begging Alicia to kill her, and Alicia can't, I did think that was a great scene.
Yeah.
And I thought that that setup was pretty good. From a staging point of view, they went all out on this one. So this was, for those two characters, I thought that, now we can see what happens. And they do move past it, which is interesting. In the end, Alicia's definitely moved into this mother role with her, very Madison-like.
Yeah,
So.
or at the very least, big sister, but with the whole beach description.
Yeah.
And they go and look for John and June, and they find the bus has somehow, even on a really tight bridge where it was, has turned on its side. Morgan's truck is destroyed or whatever, and they find nobody. And they also go back to the mansion and don't find anybody there, right?
True, but I will say they don't even bother looking in the bus. It was a little weird, but okay. Maybe they did.
Maybe that's just happening off camera. But so they're like, we're gonna find him. Don't worry, I can find things. We're gonna find him, right? So, in the end, you're left with a good feeling because finally Alicia might be past her unreasonable murderous rage thing that's been going on for the last 10 episodes. So finally, we're back in a good place with her, which is a relief.
Yep.
So that was a lot of baggage to hold on to. Episode 11 is called The Code. Yep. And here's where the season is going off the rails. Off the rails. And you know what? It's probably, this is going to be unkind, but it's probably no surprise that it was written by the new showrunners, Andrew Chambliss and Alec. Oh, no. Andrew Chambliss is one of them. Andrew Delisle is not one of them. The guy's name is Goldberg. I forget. Directed by Tara Nicole Ware. And $1.83 million. So this is Morgan's story since splitting up with Alicia, and this is kind of where the episode goes. I mean, the final one we're going to talk about is more of a June and Al story. But so Morgan, after losing Alicia, hides in the back of a semi, which is not locked, and then has like the best night of his life. He finds a peanut butter protein bar, which is kind of a callback to.
It's his fave.
He had one in Kings County that Michonne stole, and he kept asking her, "Did you steal my peanut butter protein?" So it's like a running joke for the show. And he sleeps so well that he doesn't notice that the truck apparently is driven for 10 hours. Like, how do you sleep to sitting right behind
especially
a semi?
Morgan.
Like, that engine is loud. And there's no way they drove during the storm, so there wouldn't have been a lot of background. Whatever. Okay, let's get. I can get past that for the sake of him having been taken from Texas to Mississippi without knowing it. And then he finds this truck stop, which is super well stocked. It's got power. It's got a coffee maker. It's got a wheelchair accessible toilet, which is when we get introduced to Wendell.
Now, Wendell, I love Daryl Mitchell. I don't know if you remember him from a variety of things, but he was first in Galaxy Quest as Tommy, then I remember him probably more, which was after. So in 2001, he had a motorcycle accident, so he became paralyzed, and then he went back into acting. He was Eli in Ed. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but he was fantastic in that, and he's been in other things as well. But so I was pretty excited to see him. I still kind of like him, despite a few implausible things, but that have nothing to do with the actor, but more to do with the storytelling. And maybe we'll find out more about him later. So this whole scenario where there's somebody leaving these care packages by the side of the road, and then Morgan, to me, implausibly ends up at this rest stop that's so stocked. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? Because my feeling is that this place just would not exist at this point. It would have been raided. It would have been, if it was one guy doing it or even a network of people doing it. I do like the idea that there's people out there doing good versus evil.
Yeah, that's a needed element for sure.
And it's a nice and needed element. I guess I'm just a little bit just cynical about how out in the open this place is.
Well,
and
your cynicism is driven by the fact that we just got done with the Vulture storyline.
Well, right. And these people are, and so I don't know. There we go. But yeah, so I did enjoy this little thing. So basically, Wendell confronts Morgan for using the handicap stall, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, that's the thing, is Wendell is clearly being introduced as comic relief.
Yeah.
And so is Mo Collins' character, Sarah, I think?
Yep, Sarah.
And so they're like a couple of funny people who have been brought onto the show. And they're twins, and they have like banter. They do try to temper that later on in this episode when they turn out to be like bad, sort of. But then it's their gray, like, these are a couple of gray characters, I guess. You don't know, really, their motivations are just kind of like purely selfish all the time, but they're not necessarily bad people. So, I don't know. Like, to me, though, they don't make sense in this world. I don't know how to justify. And then also the third character gets introduced, Jim, the brewer. Mm-hmm. He's kind of an Althea. He's like an Al to me. He's like someone who's holding on to his old profession and thinking how important it is in this new world. And I guess his point, I think I actually agree with more than hers. Mm-hmm. Where he makes an impassioned speech to Morgan at one point about how beer has been at the center of every civilization since, ancient Sumeria.
I thought maybe one of the showrunners knows one of these crazy brewing beer people, because we all have friends that are really into brewing, or at least I have several, and this is exactly the kind of speech you would hear from them. So I thought that was kind of funny, and I thought that was injecting. Again, I think maybe they felt like this had gotten a little dark, and they're trying to put some levity in there, and they're adding in characters that aren't completely... maybe they're a little gray, but they're not just, mustache twirling.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And I like that. But I feel like it's kind of it's a little bit jarring given where we just came from.
And against the backdrop of where the show has been, and in the chronology of this show, we're like 2 years into the apocalypse. And Jim is saying, I've just been at the brewery the entire time. I've never even got out of the brewery.
And nobody's like tried to raid it for supplies or do anything like, like this seems, again, just like the way station seems slightly implausible. But in any case, that's where we're going with this. And ultimately, Sarah and Wendell reveal themselves to be not the do-gooders that Morgan originally thought. And then Morgan also has a little bit of a crisis of faith, because he originally is going to go back to sort of see what he can do for Al and June and John and Alicia and all those folks, and then makes a very conscious decision to turn around and ask for a ride to Virginia. The interesting thing I find about the way that Morgan tells Sarah and Wendell about the Virginia sort of group he's a little bit, I was a little surprised that he was giving as much information as he even was. He didn't give all that much information, but he gave them enough. Like, I just feel like he might be a little bit more guarded, and maybe because he thought that they were do-gooders and he bought into it. I don't know. Like, I guess Morgan is always a little bit more naive than you expect him to be sometimes.
Well, also, Alexandria can take care of itself. Like, he should be able to send two people to Alexandria, and Alexandria will have its own vetting system.
They dealt with the vultures and the wolves and all that, so I think they're probably all right.
Well, the saviors, you mean.
And the saviors, right. I just feel like he wouldn't be quite this trusting, and his I don't know. So, but in any case, that's where we are, and ultimately they reveal themselves, and it was to me, it was pretty predictable that it would turn out that Jim had been kidnapped by them, and oh wait, no, these guys are the enemies.
Well, first he's kidnapped by them, then he's like, you know what? Actually, I'll go with you. I'll make beer for you, and then I will start a business and bring back civilization with beer. Yeah. Oh, sure, man. Okay, but then when they all leave Morgan essentially to die, is when you're like, wait a sec, hang on.
Yeah, like come on, man.
Of course. You know, Jim is like, I've lived in a brewery, I don't know how to fight, which is then he's more of a liability in this scenario until they get, like, he's a Eugene, I guess, but until you get him into an Alexandria place, sort of, he's just dead weight.
Yep.
And so that would leave Sarah to do the rescue all by herself, effectively, because unless Wendell's going to, like, shoot at them from the top of the bridge, which I don't think they want to do. Yeah, it is a really tough thing, but they also could have been like, all right, Morgan, jump down and we'll help pull you up that hill or something.
Right, which ultimately is what Morgan does. He jumps and somehow manages to get a knife and manages to cut his things really quickly in the dark.
He finds that knife in the dark. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, I'm a big fan though of signpost zombie kills. Carol did a few of them in season 7 or whatever of Walking Dead. Yes, much love for the signpost zombie kills, and Morgan does it with panache with his usual, stick twirling ability. So big fan of that.
And ultimately, he finds his way back to them, and they've been listening to him on the walkie. And somehow, even though they still have leverage, they don't know exactly where the Virginia thing is. But even though they don't have as much leverage, they still agree to go along and help with Morgan, despite the fact that they've been so cavalier before. So that's interesting. But
yeah, they really want to go to Alexandria for some reason. Like it's like this pie in the sky sort of dream for them now that they all want to get there, but Morgan's not going to let them go until. Because he hasn't told them where it is until they help more people. Because now he's trying to make up for that decision that he made on the bridge. It's a very quick 180 or 360, but I guess there we are. And then we also get introduced to the Filthy Woman, which is the character name of I forget her name, but
she doesn't really have one yet. But
her name is the Filthy Woman. That's what she's being called.
No, the actor. Which is also that, and then I'm like, oh, here is the mustache twirling villain. And, so you can tell she's evil because she's writing stuff on walkers' faces. That's never a good sign.
And talking to them like they can hear her.
Yeah. So anyway, that's she's on her way to get stuff from them because apparently she's got a lot of time and resources to waste to do that, which seems kind of weird. It's like, oh, who is this woman? And she does not like do-gooders. That is her other thing.
Yeah, we finally get to a point in the story where people are doing nice things for people, and we have a crazy person who is like morally opposed to that. Great, that's just what we need. So episode 12 is entitled Weak, and it was directed by Coleman Domingo, Mr. Strand himself, written by Kalinda Vasquez, and has 1.52 million viewers. So we've gone down a few. The population of New Orleans has stopped watching since we started talking about it. So this is the June and Al story. It's the story of the goddamn van, which is still not out of our lives.
No, never.
And shoes. So it's out of fuel. At least that's a realistic thing.
This is also the story of people talking into walkie-talkies a lot, and a lot of static, and a lot of that going on. And wait, come again?
I repeat. You know what's really kind of I shouldn't have such a bug up my ass about this, but every time that June says I repeat and she then says the same thing, I'm like, you don't have to say I repeat, just say the same thing again.
Right.
You're redundant. They do show Al drinking one of the bottled waters out of the box at the beginning of this episode. They'd picked up one of the roadside boxes and we're eating and drinking out of it, and they do show Al drinking out of one of those bottles. And then later in this episode we get to see that the filthy woman has been pouring
dirty water into them.
Dirty water into those bottles because that'll make people strong, or I don't know. I really don't get her, but she's crazy, so whatever. So that's how Al gets super sick this episode. I assume that you put that together because you're the plot sleuth. Okay.
Yep.
But yeah, so Al gets progressively worse.
Well, they've also very specifically only showed June drinking out of the canteen.
Yeah.
So that was it. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but they also they're there for a couple of days, and then they talk about being completely out of water, and I'm like, well, so June really didn't drink any of the box water?
Well, exactly. Okay.
And why would Al open this bottle of water, and if it didn't still have that seal on it, why would she be like, yeah, this is cool? Yeah. Okay, but sure. So they decide that they have to leave the truck to go find gas, and so they go for an amble. More radio stuff happening. They find a truck. Suddenly, the van drives past them. What are the odds? Mm-hmm. And there's the car chase. Al, who just was throwing up and is feverish, is driving.
Yeah, I thought that was like, choice. Why on earth would that be a good idea? What? And also, let's talk about the dude that took the van. So basically, he was traveling with enough diesel fuel to get the van and to power it up, and apparently
drive it at 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, but apparently just long enough. Like he did just enough fuel.
So as you know, with large trucks, the most fuel efficient way to drive them is 70. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, little known fact. But yeah, so that leaves us with Al basically unable to continue. She tells June that there's Cipro on the bus or on the van rather. And
so now who in this audience between you and me knew that she was lying? Hands up.
No, I didn't know that.
Really?
I don't know how you could have possibly known that.
Please, because Al is not stupid, and if they were going to leave the thing, they're not going to leave like medical supplies like that behind. They're going to carry something. It's just not in her nature. So there's no way that she had Cipro in that van. Anyway,
I don't know that she even had a backpack. But yeah, so she's left her most prized possessions, which are her videotapes, right? So
yeah, but those are heavy. Come on.
So June ends up having to leave her by the side of the road because Al crashes the van or their truck and blows a tire. And so June does this little mission, gets caught, fights her way out of the way with this other guy called Quinn. We don't know that until later, but he seems like a cool dude. But then she like boots him out of the truck to go survive on his own, even when he starts to kind of get blubbery, which I like that about June. June's a tough cookie.
And then we have Morgan, who finally encounters the dirty woman and doesn't really just seem to react to it very much, just kind of is like, oh, I guess she's crazy. Yeah. She's basically like, people are, I'm not weak. And he's like, okay, leaving you there to do your little crazy thing. But he still seems a little bit too nonplussed about it, but okay. Yeah. And then, there's a lot more of the walkie-talkie, a lot of mile marker 27 mentioned about 50 times.
Mile markers in general in these 4 episodes is just like, how many mile marker shots are we subjected to? And lots. Right.
And then, the whole thing with the truck, we think we're going to get somewhere with Al to figure out what that background is. We get no more of that. We just get more bullshit about her stories. I'm kind of tired of her stories. And
we almost June asks her for the story of the van when she's trying to change the tire, and she's just like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to get into that right now. I'm like, dude, we need you to give up some more details.
Right.
And I'm not talking to Al. I'm talking to the writers.
Yeah.
Because she is way too one note.
Yep. And
she's the one who has said, I've got layers, but honestly, I'm not feeling it. Or if she has them, she's keeping them too under her vest, and it's not working for me.
And we've seen a little bit more of June in this. She's worried that John doesn't love her, that she's not
Yeah.
really shown him who she is. And at some point he had mentioned going back to the cabin, and June's biggest fear is that he's going to realize that she's not that person that she was there, which is kind of dumb because she pretty much showed who she was and just took off. But like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the stuff between them I found to be totally unsatisfying. And at the very least, they could have given us a little bit about Al to make her less one-dimensional, because she's not even she's like one-dimensional.
She has two things she cares about: her videos and her
the truck. And you know, I did like the interaction between June and Quinn, and that was kind of interesting. And thank God they finally hook up with Morgan and Sarah and Jim.
Yeah, there is an element of arbitrary BS to the cast getting split up again.
Yeah, of course.
Like, as fans of these shows, how many times have we been subjected to the cast getting split up and then reunited? It's just, It's exhausting. And at least it doesn't last the entire season. It's only been a couple of episodes, but still.
All right. And then my really, what I find to be one of the most annoying things they did, because actually I kind of liked him. I was hoping he was going to play a bigger role, but alas not. Big spoilers here, guys. But Quinn has been listening in on the radio. June basically invites him to help them do good, and it's this very happy little monologue between the two of them. And it was kind of funny because he calls her Cipro. And I was like, oh, maybe this could be something. But Quinn, for a mysterious reason, thinks that mile 27 immediately comes after mile 20. He even noticed the marker and mentions it. And then somebody's put some bad tape on mile marker 21, and he gets taken out by the mysterious dirty woman who is silent with the walker, apparently.
Silent walker.
And this guy Quinn, who's managed to survive all this stuff on his own, manages to get taken out by the crazy woman and the very silent walker, and then becomes a walker himself. And more writing on his face, so you know she's bad and crazy.
Well, if you can hold a walker in complete silence, you know, and also approach a man who's armed. Actually, he's not. He doesn't have a gun anymore, does he?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, and why on earth would he get out of the? I don't know. The whole thing seems totally implausible to me. But now we leave the dirty woman with Althea's van. So there you go. Now she's a threat.
Yep, she is the threat, and even though she seems like. Unfortunately, now she has Althea's van, which is a weapon itself. So that's the problem. And we'll get into that next episode, in episode 13.
We should also probably mention that the walker she's been walking around with, I think, was probably the original guy who was helping, or one of the people that was helping, and she decided to kill him. So,
because there is a network, because the woman that Morgan speaks to on the radio does not sound to me like the filthy woman. It sounds
it's not her. It's somebody else.
And she uses the moniker Polar Bear, which is the truck driver's name.
Yep.
So I think there was actually or maybe still is, but too short maybe. they're running out of people.
Yep.
There is a network of truckers doing this work that Wendell and Sarah lie and say that they're part of.
Right. But yeah, so maybe they'll have that appearance later on. But in any case, we leave this with Dirty Woman in Althea's truck and the others kind of, you know, still hanging out at mile marker 27.
Yep.
So there we are.
There it is.
Episodes 1 through 4. So, you know, I kind of want to see what happens, obviously, in the next part of the season. I do, you know, I have no issue with them. You know, as I said, I think that it's a great idea to introduce a little bit more levity so it's not quite so bleak. But I feel like it's been a little bit too much. And also in terms of the storytelling, there's some implausible things that you just learn to deal with in this series. But I feel like a lot of what's been thrown at us, to me, it's like clear that there are new showrunners. This doesn't quite feel like the same show.
Well, not only in that they did like a purge when they first got onto the show.
Well, that too.
You know, even though it wasn't like right away, it wasn't like episode 1, but still, yeah, they definitely, the purge feeling cannot be avoided in this season. And so there's only 4 episodes left. It's an 8 episode second half of the season run. And so the next one is Blackjack. And then the one after that, the one that's airing tonight, is actually directed by Lou Diamond Phillips, which I'm pretty excited to see what he comes up with.
All right. I'm all right with that.
Yeah. And then we'll have a couple more. So that'll be our next time we get together. I imagine that we will be reviewing episodes 13 and 14.
I think that sounds like a great idea.
Okie dokie.
So let us know what you think about this start to the mid-season. It's sort of the slog, maybe. Who knows? Undecided yet, but hopefully we'll see a little bit more in the next couple episodes. Let us know what you think. Send us an email at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com or tweet at us. Reanimatedpcast is the handle. Or just leave a little note on our site, reanimatedpodcast.com. And until next time, ciao.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening.